back to the Roots Podcast. Brian Wood and myself sat down with 3 women from the Plain community. They are Amish wives, mothers, and they all live on organic dairy farms. So we had a conversation with them regarding a woman's role within the community, the church, the family, and on the farm. We hit on a lot of different topics as it pertains to their roles in the farm, especially, and then also touched on community and within the church. And as we found out, there wasn't really a defined role, but it's just a community effort. So I hope you find this interesting. So without further ado, here are Katie Kline, Ann Miller, and Emily Hershberger. Enjoy.
Okay, we're recording now. Now forget that this is here. But so why don't we just start with who you are and a little bit of background.
Okay, I'm Ann Miller. I'm married to Kevin Miller. We have 4 children, Seth, Laurel, Claire, and Ben. They're from ages 11 to 3. We farm 70 acres. Some rented. We own 120 acres. We milk jerseys, normally between 40 and 50 cows. It varies a little bit, whether the tank runs over or not. And that covers it.
Okay, I'm Emily Hershberger. I'm married to David. We have 2 children. Noah is 13 and Eve is 4. We have an organic dairy, of course. We milk around 35 to 40 jerseys. We own 80 acres and then we rent an additional, 30 acres, I believe.
I'm Katie Kline, married to Tim. We also have 4 children. They are Ryan, Aaron, Demi, and Kara from ages 17 to 9. We have 139 acres that we own, and then we also rent about 50 and milk approximately 60 Jersey cows.
So I think we'll just start with part of the reason why we're here, and I just want each of you to talk a little bit about your role in within the Amish home, farm, family. So if one of you wants to start with that.
Where to begin? Well, on the dairy, as far as my jobs are, I help with a morning and evening milking, and I do take care of the calves probably the first week until they're on the barrel, and then David takes care of them. And as far as a lot of it is just, I'm totally involved in the farm, but I don't do any field work besides maybe helping with the hay. And I do notice as Noah is getting older, I do need to step back a bit so he can take more responsibility, which is harder than I thought it would be. But I think I can still be involved just by listening to David. David shares everything. I feel I know exactly what's going on the farm.
That's basically what I do. I feel it's a great privilege to be living on a dairy farm, especially an organic dairy farm, and be able to have the children home and everybody helping each other with the morning and evening milkings and raising the calves, which is something that I greatly enjoy. And just being able to have that privilege of being together every day is just, and knowing what happens daily, being informed is a great thing for me.
Actually, last night while I was in the barn, I was milking. The 2 oldest were spreading out silage. I'm not quite sure what Kevin was doing, something. And the girls were taking care of the ponies, and I was like, life really, I don't think life could get better than this. I mean, we're just all together and interacting, and yet everybody was working. I think it's very important for children to learn responsibility.
Absolutely.
As they get older, and what's a better place to do it than on the farm? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are actually things that we need them to do. Mm-hmm. We're not just looking for things for them to do, but they're needed. And basically my role is very close. I do some field work. Seth is starting to take over some, but I just like it so much. So occasionally during the summer, if we're doing something in the field, Kevin will actually come in and do the milking and let me have a turn in the field. I'm kind of busy in the house taking care of the clothes and the food and all that, those things. But I do like getting out, and so he'll give me the opportunity occasionally as well.
You work with a power unit, don't you? I don't. I'm totally
love it.
mechanically handicapped. I just can't. That's one thing I don't work with is motors.
So I think one thing that I don't think we should be using the word role, because there isn't a specific role that the wife plays. It's whatever
Needs to be done.
exactly. Yeah.
And it varies from
Farm to
home.
farm.
Yeah, from
I was thinking
home
the
to
same
home.
thing. Even I was just thinking, trying to define a role. Well, it's kind of a team effort. The whole family, and especially husband and wife on a farm, it's a team effort. I mean, if he needs help doing something, I'll go out and help him. Then, if I need help, if it's really desperately necessary in the house, he will bail me out. It has to be pretty necessary. But that's more a personality thing than a role issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the family unit working on the farm would be similar to as the community works. It's kind of community trickle down into the family farm operation. Is that right?
I would say so. Where there's a need, you be there. You drop your
It
own
is
things.
fulfilled. Right.
Yes, you drop your own things for the greater good of the community, even if it's maybe a tad personally inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
You have that mindset, or you should, and you try to.
If the neighbors have somebody that gets sick, you take them a meal. Or if there's a death in the community, you go and you just help. And
You just drop things at home, and and your own things always get done.
They do.
Even though you think at the time, boy, I was really busy, but just one of those things.
And I think this is probably universal, but it's especially strong in our community. If all else fails, take a casserole. I mean,
They can use it sometime.
it makes you feel good to do something.
Right.
And
Because
so-
if you don't have the right words to give them at a time of loss or so,
Give them a
just
casserole.
Give them a casserole.
Or a pie?
Everybody,
Pie works really well too.
Talking about, you, Katie, you mentioned in the time of need with a neighbor, and you were mentioning casseroles. When there is a death in, let's say, in your neighborhood, I'm sure there's things that are just kind of unwritten. It's not necessarily your position, but it's just kind of happens. Is there a person in charge of the meals and kind of coordinating that?
That varies from church to church too. There are churches that have committees and they make a menu and they assign people, and then in the next church it might be whatever people bring. They'll warm up, they'll set out, it just really varies.
Usually there's maybe even a neighbor lady. Usually there's one person somewhat in charge, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, I
even
think
if she's
so.
not necessarily appointed by the church, but there will be somebody that I'm not one to take charge. So if I go help out, I like to ask somebody, what can I do? And they'll tell me, okay, you can go wash the windows in the Dottie house, and I like that. I like if somebody tells me what to do.
It's almost a seniority thing. Like the closest neighbor who's kind of oldest, kind of even without being planned or said, you just kind of ask her.
But then so Emily, your time will come too when you're one of those.
I hope not.
But like in our church, I don't know is it so much in your church or not, but in our church there's 3 ladies and they literally plan the whole menus and tell everybody. And then like in our neighbors, we're not in the neighbors' church, they don't plan the menu. They might have one main thing that they count on coming, and then the rest of the things just kind of come, whatever somebody wants to bring.
Well, I think the lady in charge of our church she does really, really well. And I noticed when we just had a funeral here, was it a couple months ago, and I just found it so interesting. These ladies that were in charge, how the men that were in charge would come in and they'd talk with these ladies and they'd be asking the ladies questions, and the ladies were in charge. I mean, they were telling the men, okay, we'd like to eat at 6:30 or 5 o'clock, whatever, and we'd like to have the tables here. And the men were very helpful, and there was a lot of respect there. Everybody was working together, but the women were kind of, they were definitely in charge. And I kind of impressed me to see how...
And it would be the same thing at a wedding too. Yeah. The women kind of make the decisions on of course,
the menu.
Food
And the wedding an Amish wedding is 90% food.
It's food.
And 10% ceremony.
So that's what women do.
It's a long ceremony, but, and the women do the food. So that is a huge part of an Amish wedding.
Exactly.
When people talk about a wedding, very seldom is much talked about other than the food.
Right.
how good the chicken was. Or,
I've never heard anybody say that the
Much about the
Amish wedding
ceremony.
had a wonderful ceremony.
Right.
maybe long-winded.
That's just a given.
But when you look at like the community that we talked about with a death in the neighborhood, but the similar, I don't want to call them roles in the church. The women's role in the church. It's not necessarily it's not a committee appointed position or anything, but everybody in the church knows their role. Would that be the way to put it? I mean, you have very important pieces and parts in the church, but it's not necessarily a
It's
position.
Not something you get voted on or whatever.
No.
A lot of it is just kind of happens. And you just kind of know where you're supposed to be and where you're not supposed to be.
But everybody has their chance. I think the goal is to have everybody feel needed. You don't want anybody to feel like they're just not capable of doing things. So there are some like church quiltings, and in our church we have every year there's an outing for women. One of the church ladies plans it, and actually what we usually do, I had it this year, so we just had a cookout. We had stew over a fire, and everybody just came, and we sat around and visited. So, and then I'll be choosing. I'll just putting all the names in a hat, and I'll just pick out a name, and then one of the other ladies will have the chance to do that. So everybody has their chance to do that, which is nice.
And another interesting thing about churches, and this was pointed out to me by somebody that's not Amish, because I guess it never even crossed my mind. She asked, "How do you sit in church?" And I said, "Well, the men on the one side and the women on the other side." And she said, "Well, how do you know where to sit?" And I said, "We always go in by ages. We file in." She said, "Well, what if you don't like the woman next to you?" And I said, "That's really not an option. I mean,
If you're in church, you should learn to like
you
her.
should learn to like her."
And it's simple. It just simplifies
It's
things.
very simple.
And if you have
Absolutely.
visitors that come, you always send them respectfully soon. They would, even though they would be a lot younger than you, you would send them all first almost as an honor, because
Right.
they came to visit us. So we will be sending them not on the front bench, maybe,
No.
but soon.
Preferably not. I have sat on the front bench. It's not very pleasant.
But another thing with the Amish church is you don't file into the church service as you arrive. Everybody waits outside, and then you all are seated at the same time. So it's not people trickling in like the normal secular church.
Right.
And we usually spend at least half an hour visiting before we would go in for the ceremony. We arrive, and then everybody shakes hands with everybody, and then you stand and you visit. Just about mundane things oftentimes, but
I learned all those lessons going to an Amish wedding this summer.
good.
We came about 10 minutes before the ceremony, just kind of trickled in, thought we'd catch a seat in the back so that if we got a little, our backs got stiff, we could sneak out. Oh no, there was a spot in the third row ready for us.
Very organized.
But you stayed for the
Safe for
long
you.
haul, didn't you?
We stayed for the long haul. Yeah, when you were saying it was revolving around food, it definitely revolves around food. But boy, that service was that 3 hours on the bench was.
Gene Logston was
Well, it
at my
prepared you for the food. Right?
That's right.
Gene Logston was at my sister's wedding, and it was a chilly October day, and it was in the top story of the barn. He said he was colder than he ever was in his entire life because he was just sitting. He was so cold. I'm hoping the food warmed him up. But
Is there something you like the family on the farm? So what are the little things that you involve your children in? And a 6-year-old, generally the first step is, say, helping with calves. But is there something that you try to do on your farm specifically to give roles to the kids?
we have ponies, 2 ponies, and they are specifically there for the children. They're kind of toys, and yet they're also to teach them responsibility. And Seth is 11 now, and I sent him to someone about 3 miles down the road because I wanted to return a toddler bed that I had. So he took the trailer and the pony. It's very convenient. He'll take calves to Mount Hope with the pony. Like I said, we got those especially for the children. We wouldn't have the pony for Kevin and myself. But we got those especially to teach them responsibility with animals, make that they're good with horses before they're 20.
That's
and then
that's
try
a
to
big
learn.
thing. I notice our son has a pony as well, a bigger pony, and it's just done wonders for his horseman skills and even his confidence in working. Then we have mules, and then when he works with the mules in the fields, he's just much more confident.
Our children started. We do have a pony, but he's not quite as much of a toy. He has a little bit of an attitude. But our children normally start around 4 or 5. They'll be assigned to go get eggs and make sure the chickens are fed and make sure the water tank is full in with the calves. And so that's still Kara's job right now. And she's 9, so obviously she could be. Well, she could be. Well, and then she'll go in the house and she'll make sure that the lunch, the things they bring home from their lunches, the dishes are washed. And then the next one is Deanie, and she's 13, so she's helping milk. She is feeding calves. She is, well, as far as the grain and the hay part, she does whatever needs to be done. And then Aaron and Ryan. Well, Aaron helps with the milking and takes care of all the work horses and the driving horses. And then Ryan is responsible for all we have a TMR, so he does all the mixing. We have some heifers at a neighbor's, so he's taking the grain up to the heifers. Ryan actually does not help a lot in the barn. I guess it's because Tim and I enjoy milking together too, and it's not something he enjoys right now. But he likes doing all the feeding. He loves field work. He does anything in the field, and just so I guess that's kind of what our family does. And it's just amazing when everybody works together how much can get done.
I'm noticing that as the children get older.
Extremely pleasurable, really.
Our children, the oldest is 11, and I'm noticing it's not just giving them things to kind of keep them busy. Mm-hmm. It's actually really, really helping.
We all go out. We start at 4 o'clock. When we're finished at 5:30, we're all finished, and we're all ready to spend the evening together. So it's just amazing. And it wasn't always this way. Definitely not. I well remember the years when there were preschoolers to take along, and they'd sit in the big calf feeders while we were milking, but they were there.
Ate about 20 crackers to keep them quiet. Ours were never really good in a swing or anything. But everybody tries to work together because our lights up in the barn are hooked up to the diesel. So when the milk is done cooling, the lights go out. And Seth has a basketball hoop, and basketball is really a big thing to him now. So when we're done with chores, we're all hustled to the top of the barn, then we can play basketball until the lights go out. So whoever is ahead, whatever team is ahead, when the lights go out, and they're the winners.
So I think one of the big things you mentioned in there was responsibility. And I think that's something that's absolutely lost, not on a farm.
Right.
Well, when I see the neighbor lady with 6 children on 2 acres, I cannot imagine keeping those children constructively entertained. Our children play a lot too. I mean, they work. They're not working all the time. But I just can't imagine with so little work to do.
And it is challenging. I have friends that tell me it is very challenging. To have enough work for them and, try to keep them occupied as you said, in a constructive way rather than just monkeying around.
That's probably why most of the schoolboys are better at basketball than Seth. They get more chance to play.
It's just the 4 of us on the farm, so usually where one is, usually we're all there. Noah does help with the milking because we feel he needs to do some of the milking. We were advised by a farmer that we respect that even though he doesn't enjoy milking right now, he needs to do some milking so he gets better at it. And he does. The more he does, the better he is at it, and then he enjoys it more. But usually he's giving silage and gives the bales while we do the milking. And Eve is just hanging out with us and
keeping you entertained.
Lots of cats, so she's biking right now while we're milking. She'll be biking in the cow stable.
And it's not so much that the children are just given a job, you have to do this. Yes, they are required to, they need to be taught responsibility, but it's not so much, I guess where I'm going is taking advantage of child labor. I think that's one of the big things that, people might talk about is...
they think we raise children for slavery.
Yes.
It's not, I don't think it's that easy to keep them motivated anyhow. But I do notice the children are happier. if
Oh,
they work.
absolutely.
Now, and as you said, if they do something that's actually helping us, sometimes David will mention to Noah, it's just amazing how much help he was today, and just the look on his face, you can just see that it just does wonders for him, just to know that he's actually needed. He's not just, he's actually really helping out.
And for the most part, it's not jobs that they hate.
Oh, no.
If they don't enjoy a certain chore, you'll probably find something else for them to do that they do enjoy, because they'll be better at it.
And usually there are two of them doing it. That makes it twice as fun.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's something they get tired of doing. If there's several of them doing it, or I try to make a point of it. If there's a huge pile of silage and they're supposed to spread out the silage, I'll take a break and go out and help them do half or whatever, just to kind of keep the spirits up, because children are still children. They're not born wanting to work always.
I can see that, because with Noah just being, he's so much older than Eve, and sometimes David will just help him out, because he said it's not fun. Because my idea was like, okay, he needs to go weed eating, and I just sent him out back, and David says no, I need to go help him weed eat, because it's not as much fun just all by himself. Mm-hmm. So I think David does really well in helping out with things.
That's usually how you can teach them to do it right anyway, is by going with them and working together.
I think it's really fun to see with the farmers that I work with, as the kids get older, the parents come to meetings a lot more. They do different things a lot more, because the kids have been a part of the operation for so long. All of a sudden you have 14, 15-year-old kids, and the parents are going, and the kids are taking care of the milking in their early teens. And I think that's from starting them young, and when they're in car seats out in the parlor or whatever.
Little Tyke's airplane swing.
And the sense of accomplishment they have when they can do that. We went to our first, Tim and I were both gone. We were gone for 3 milkings, and the oldest ones were 12 and 10. They stayed with other people for the one night we were gone. But they took care of all the milking, all the feeding, and they were so excited when we came home. Everything went well, and it was just the look on their faces was just priceless, because it was just so much fun for them to be able to do that. So this is a bit of a subject change. I'm not sure, if you're not farming, when do husbands and wives talk? Because we do all our deep talking probably mornings while we're milking, which the children don't help in the morning yet, especially not when school's on. During the summer, Seth will take a turn, but sometimes if we really need to talk about something, we'll milk together and make a point of, especially being both in the cow stable. That's when we really have good talks. Mm-hmm. And when Dad comes out to help with the cleaning the barn, it takes 3 times as long, but it's 3 times as fun, because we discuss everything while we're working.
Oftentimes the farm plan is we discuss the children as well if they're not around while we do the milking, but oftentimes we'll be discussing the farm. What his plans are, and he wants my input on it, and that's what I enjoy.
Well, that's definitely something that I've noticed with traveling for work, is I plan my traveling around when my wife is at home with our baby. So, and then when she's working, then I'm at home with the baby. So
you're never together.
There's hardly any overlap, and we have to carve out time
specifically.
Yeah.
You really have to work at marriage, because it's when you're not
Yeah,
doing that
told me
interaction there. When you're not
bought a farm.
Just add cows, Brian.
Yeah. If I added cows, my wife would.
Maybe you wouldn't have a marriage to work on anymore.
And especially as the children get older, I can really see that, because they like to be in on our conversations too. So that morning milking is just it's just really something we need, really do.
How long have you guys been organic? Or when did you start shipping organic milk?
Okay. It was in 2006 we bought the farm, and then three years later we immediately began the transition in 2006. So it was 2009 in, I would say, May, or I'm thinking they pushed us out a bit.
I think it was supposed to be March.
Was it supposed to be March?
I think it was supposed to be March, and it went till May.
Yeah, I'm thinking May 1st.
You got pushed back 60 days.
Yeah, we did. we thought it was kind of terrible at the time, but it didn't. It was no hardship.
You're okay with it now?
We're okay with it now. I remember how excited we were to have the truck back in the first time.
We moved to the farm when David and Emily left, and that was in 2005. No, that's 2006. And then, well, it was organic already, so we never farmed any other way. And we wouldn't go back to doing it any other way.
Well, you'd have nothing to go back to.
I have nothing to go back to. And Kevin didn't grow up on a farm, so he didn't come with a bunch of baggage, I always say, because he never farmed anyway, besides
Actually, not
organically.
as many opinions, because David
he still has quite a few opinions. It was so funny when he had never milked cows, so when we came back and we started milking, we were both in the cow stable. I said, by the second day, he was already telling me what to do, and I said, look, I grew up milking cows, and you didn't. But he just kind of knew what needed to be done, I guess.
This was the guy who didn't know what a heifer was? Is that right?
That was her husband.
I think that's kind of neat.
He was really a city boy.
That David and Kevin, neither one grew up on a farm or were farmers at all, and are now married to sisters and both very successful
farmers.
Sometimes I just about can't believe my luck. I mean, it's what I always wanted to do my entire life. But when I met him, there was no farm around. I mean,
you shelved it a bit.
I just assumed, well, that's just one of those things that'll never happen. And sometimes I'm just so grateful. So grateful.
And I am one who did not want to marry a farmer. I grew up on a farm. I was not impressed with it. But now I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's just something that I love doing now. And I guess it makes a difference when it's your own. We started shipping organic milk in 2012, and so that was a really exciting day for us too. We started farming in 1999 is when we started farming together, and then it wasn't until 2012 that we shipped organic milk.
I bet that was exciting the day you started shipping organic, but I bet it was more exciting when the first milk tray came.
Absolutely. Especially with the milk prices in 2012, the conventional milk prices were really bad.
But one thing, I always think if you farm conventionally for a while, it does give you good management skills, because you don't have all that money to hang it around. So our first 3 years we were tight. I mean, there wasn't a lot of extra money hanging around, but David always says he thinks it was very beneficial.
And now there's all that money, extra money.
I would say that.
And there's more than they're just so wise with it.
Now, Emily, you guys ship 100% grass milk. You don't feed any grain, right?
No, we've just started that. Was it June 1st?
July.
Was it July 1st? Mm-hmm. So we've only been going for half a year now, but we had some rough spots when the winter started, but it's kind of leveled out. I think it's gonna be okay. Mm-hmm. Kind of excited about it. As David always said, if it comes in the area, he'd like to give it a try.
Well, maybe let's switch gears into the home, and if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Ironing, baking, laundry, cooking. No, there are days that, I love my role as a wife and mother, and I feel totally fulfilled in it most times. But there are days that it just seems I do get frustrated or tired of it. And then it's time that David and I always call it our date nights. We'll go do something either with the children or even just the two of us, and we'll just maybe not even talk about that, but we'll reconnect, and then I'll feel this is where I want to be, this is where I was meant to be, and I'm happy and contented in it. But once in a while I'll get those days that I just need a break.
I think I used to have days like that too, but our daughter is 15 now, and so I have lots of help, so I don't do everything anymore.
You have more freedom in a way.
I have more freedom, I really do. But I love my job as being a mom and providing the meals. I was trying to figure out the other day how many meals I cooked, and it was pretty amazing. The meals and just the laundry and cleaning and sewing. I really love to sew. So making our own clothes is I like doing that. And yes, like Emily said, it's just a routine, but it's I guess it's not something that I feel. The one thing that I feel is really great about being an Amish wife, I guess, is there's no need to go out and look for a job. There's plenty to do at home, and not that I'd even want to.
And the husband is the breadwinner. I am so happy to have him as the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am involved in all aspects of the financial part. I know where we're going. I can sit back, and he takes his role very seriously to be the breadwinner. I think it's very freeing for me. It's very liberating.
It is.
I mean, I have, it's not that I'm ignorant. I don't know where the milk check's going to, but I don't feel that need to, almost the stress of, okay, I need to make very wise decisions for this to be successful. I mean, he's doing that. And I think because he's taking the role seriously, he makes wise business decisions.
I used to teach school, and I remember coming home from school one day. I told Mom, I just can't imagine these women who just are at home taking care of their families. I mean, what an unfulfilling role that would be. My mom gave me a dressing down that I did not rapidly forget, but I still thought so, even though she said, that's a very fulfilling job. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And once I married, I just could not believe. I thought you wouldn't impact anybody except your own kids, and how rewarding is that? But I just couldn't believe how far actually you could reach within the home. I was a little older when I married, and it was an adjustment, very much so. But once you have your own place, and I absolutely loved it. I mean,
you're in charge.
I felt like I was my own boss. I always worked first, with the school. I was my own boss in a sense, but I worked for the school board. And I had other jobs that I enjoyed, but I never found anything quite as freeing and fulfilling as just simply being at home and liberating, making my own decisions. I mean, there were occasionally things that I had to ask my husband, but basically in the house with the family, clothing, meals. I mean, that's completely up to me. I mean, he doesn't look at the grocery bill when I come home and comment on whether this was necessary, that was necessary, not at all. And I don't know, I actually was surprised how much I enjoy it. And it has its days. I mean, I say every job, everything you do occasionally has it sounds better in Dutch, but has its bull stall that you need to fork out. Everybody knows who's been on a farm, if you have a bull in a stall and you have to fork it out by hand, it's very, very difficult, ugly work. And so every job has its bull stall that you have to muck out.
Exactly.
You all have your days. You'll never find a job that's perfect. And I think probably our calling, one might say, is probably as interesting. There's so many, you can garden, there's so many different things. It's not just doing putting the same bolts in the same piece every day. There's a lot of variety.
Right.
And there's a lot of time for being creative and to having projects. And
you can choose the things you want to raise that year and preserve, and just have your children have their own little garden that they take great joy in, and they'll be out there picking those weeds because it's theirs.
I still have to work on that. My daughter loves the planting. She's not quite so fond of the weeds. Mom, why don't you just do it? You can do it so much faster. I want to garden again. Maybe, I don't know if I want one this year, she said, after she had planted it.
Now it's done. Reap the consequences.
But my children enjoy being in the kitchen. That's something I have to get accustomed to. I would just as soon do it myself, but right now I'm making kombucha, and last night all three of them were there, and just because they saw the SCOBY, they saw the process we made, they thought it was delicious, and actually it wasn't great. But they stood there with straws. Oh, Mom, this stuff is good, and they kind of take little sips. But it was just because they saw the process. If I would have come out with this and said, "Here, something for you to drink," I don't think a single one of them would have enjoyed it. But if they see the process, they enjoy being part of it.
Right.
It's the same thing with gardening and canning and making meals. And I want to go down that road in a second, but I think one of the perceptions that you kind of threw out there, or that was set aside there, was that, as an Amish wife, you listen to your husband, and that is where your role is, and that's not necessarily true. I just wanted to reiterate that
we're not necessarily doormats.
Right. Exactly.
I think my husband would sometimes like if I would just do a little more listening instead of so much talking. He probably has to listen more than I do.
No, it's not. It's not oppression at all. It's joint decisions. It's being there, able to do for the other person what they can't, picking up after each other. That's basically what it is. It's not a. It's
not being told you need to make this meal, plant these vegetables.
Oh, I wish sometimes he'd tell me what to make. I ask him, "What are you hungry for?" Whatever you want to make, and that's
sounds like at home too.
Yeah.
Well, you guys mentioned cooking and baking. You guys obviously do a great job because I have seen your husbands grow over the years.
Not taller.
No, they're still short.
Mine hasn't put on as much weight as I sometimes wish he would. It makes me look kind of bad.
And they're very appreciative. It's very fun cooking for a family that's very appreciative and easy to cook for.
One other perception that I wanted to also bring up, just as far as home cooking, is that do you guys go to the grocery store?
Yes.
Yes, we do. But my great joy is cooking with real food.
Yes.
Most of the things we eat, our own meat, our own eggs, our own vegetables that we canned or frozen, we do for the basics, definitely.
One thing that I'm not able to raise that we do really, really like, and that is bananas.
Bananas.
Right.
Yes.
Especially organic bananas.
We love
They're so good.
smoothies, and you just can't really make a really good smoothie without putting a banana in. So yeah, we buy groceries.
Make a kefir smoothie every morning.
That's what I
with
do.
Milk from one of the farms that I work with, strawberries that I got from one of our farmers that are frozen, and then maple syrup that is from one of our farmers, and bananas from the grocery store.
That's exactly what I almost every day. I have kefir going every day, and that's what I make. And we have blueberries or raspberries. I don't raise myself. I buy those from locally, but all those things are frozen except the bananas.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yep.
And it's just satisfying being able to do that, to raise or and just stay away from the processed foods. It's just.
But I just think that one of the perceptions is that all the food is homegrown, which the goal is to make as much
as
as
Right.
the basics.
Right, and then same thing with your clothes. Mm-hmm. Everything is hand sewn and everything like that.
No, not everything. No,
we wear sweatshirts, and we wear, as long as it's fairly plain, we do buy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do buy clothing. And garage sales are great because Amish people have too many clothes too. So they sell them at garage sales, so you can go buy Amish clothes at a garage sale. I think that's wonderful.
especially for everyday clothes that you're going to wear in the barn anyway. Why not go buy them from somebody for 25 cents?
They're usually cheap.
That's right.
But there's also satisfaction in sewing dresses
Yes.
and pants, and
Especially
I don't sew shirts, but
Right.
even coats. I mean, there's a nice feeling when you're finished and knowing that you've sewn this article of clothing.
And that's not just an Amish thing. We are taught that from being young. But there are lots and lots of back to the landers that would share our same philosophy. Mm-hmm. It's not just every woman likes to sew because she's Amish. Not necessarily.
No.
I mean, some have
Actually,
more
there are
talents
some that
than
don't.
We're all individuals.
We're not that different from everybody
Well,
else.
and that's the whole point of why we wanted to sit down and why we're sitting down with everybody is that, normal people are normal.
We
Kind
are.
of like we would look at maybe Mormons or Muslims, people that we're unfamiliar with. If we are able to sit down and look into their life, we see, they're just people like we are too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we are, is just normal women.
Absolutely.
Doing the best we can, I guess, but sometimes it's not so great.
Do you guys raise most of your own vegetables?
Oh, I would say most of them. Let me think.
I'll buy some lettuce occasionally if I need to take a bunch along somewhere. But as far as, I buy no canned vegetables at all.
No.
And now during the summer, I'll buy peaches and pineapple, and I'll can them. I'll buy them
when they're
fresh,
in season,
and then I'll can them. So that's not now peaches. We had our own this year, but we don't every year. So, some of those things are bought, but they're still canned or frozen or for later. But vegetables, I don't think I would buy much of anything.
I buy some green peas every once in a while.
Oh, I do too. I buy peas.
We love the homegrown peas, but they just...
I can never raise enough. They're so labor intensive.
So good.
And sometimes you have to decide you can't do it all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, occasionally I will put my kefir and my kombucha away because I can't do it all. But if I have time, I like to make our own cereal, but there are times when we eat Honey Nut Cheerios because I just didn't have time to make grape nuts or granola or, so sometimes we're not super women. I mean, we all have our limitations, and you finally have to decide what's most important. And the children, the family, the husband and the children and the community and the neighbors are supposed to be the first and foremost. So if you're not getting that done, maybe it's time to cut back on the size of your garden or something.
Even the garden is a family activity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just you running the garden. As a complete aside, between the two of you, do you know what variety of cucumbers your mom uses to pickle? My
whole lot of
pickles
different
always
ones.
get mushy. Why are my pickles getting
Let
mushy?
me give you a tip. You mean canned?
Yes.
Soak them in lime. Get
Overnight?
pickling lime in the store. It's just simply hydrogenated. Is it No. Hydrated lime, I think.
Hydrated lime.
It's chalky. You don't want to get it anywhere but you soak. There's a recipe on the back. If you soak them in that for 24 hours, I think, then you rinse them really, really well, then you can them, then they stay crunchy.
And you can use your own recipe, but just soak them for 24 hours.
Okay.
It's the biggest difference. Absolutely.
You can even get dill spears that are crunchy, and that's very difficult because those are usually mushy. And when I found that, I just thought it was the greatest breakthrough. Mm-hmm. And my mom also has one other recipe. So it's not the variety of pickle. It's the process of doing them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And how long do you can them? Because that would make a difference too.
Yeah, I've wondered that if I'm boiling them too long.
Normally, I just take it up to a nice rapid boil and then I turn it off.
If you follow directions, it'll say boil them to death.
Yes.
Because of some bacteria.
That's what I'm quickly realizing.
If you want crunch, don't bother. It won't. If you get milk from one of your dairy farms, you're not going to die from some bacteria. Anyway.
No.
That's in a pickle.
You're toughened up.
If you want to get toughened up, you can take your shoes off and wade through common or barefooted.
You reach a certain age, so that's just not pleasurable anymore.
Do your kids take an interest in the gardening too, or is it not so much? Because growing
That's
up,
individual children, actually, for my family. I mean, Brian always has these ambitions of raising all these things, and he would love to plan everything, and then I'm not sure he would get it taken care of. He's way too busy. But the girls definitely always help weed, and then Kara has an especially interest in the garden for some reason. She just really, really loves it. But they will definitely help, especially when there's blueberries to pick, and there's strawberries, and there's sweet corn to get ready, and things like that. They really take an interest in it, but not always. Sometimes
your kids like picking strawberries?
Oh, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
I love picking
You
strawberries.
brainwash your kids.
When we do sweet corn, we do a lot at a time, and basically they're fighting to drive the tractor because we drive the tractor along the side while we pick. They'll help with other things too, but everybody wants to drive the tractor. So my children take an interest somewhat, but that's really my passion. So in the evening after chores, I don't actually really mind to just go out there by myself and just have quiet. They're playing in the yard or they're around there. If there's really something that needs to be done, they will help. But I say that's kind of my therapy. Just quiet time, with your hand in the soil. And at this point, I don't push it too much because if they want to be out, they're oftentimes out there with me, but I haven't pushed it too much because I like it so well by myself.
I'd be with you on that. I mean, our children help as needed, but I have a little stirrupo, and I just love being out there and just hoeing and keeping my garden not spotless, but trying.
But you don't want to. If you have to go out there and there's weeds that you can't even find your plants, then the fun's done way before that. But just every evening, spending time tying up your tomatoes and doing that kind of thing, I really enjoy that. Now when I'm taking off tomatoes or something like that, they're always there to help. They love doing big stuff like that. Now, weeding carrots, I don't think anybody would enjoy weeding carrots in my family besides myself.
Everybody likes planting and then picking the nice...
And preparing the soil. That's
tomatoes.
probably where Noah comes in. He'll prepare the soil. He'll do the tilling or the spading.
Nice shiny machinery.
Oh, sure.
Machinery anytime,
Always.
right.
And usually he's trying to come up with some kind of invention, some kind of a plow
make it easier,
that makes
right?
it easier.
Well, my husband bought a small cultivator to hitch the pony in to cultivate the garden. I like to mulch. He thought we should cultivate. Needless to say, we're either going to have to get rid of the cultivator or prepare for marriage counseling because it did not work out very well at all.
Why didn't
The pony got tired of it. It was a little too heavy for the pony. The pony got tired, so he'd veer left and right.
Oh,
And I'm very particular. I worked hard to get my garden here. I don't want to take out a bunch of green beans because the pony's stubborn. And so it ended up being, it was supposed to be a children's project, and it ended up being husband and wife, and I was always kind of hot by the time we were done. So the cultivator is just remaining parked.
and is the mulching happening?
I think I'm going to put it out beside the road and put a for sale sign on it. Yeah, I'm mulching. But they do help with the mulching because that's heavy work. So our husbands are very normal too.
Well, in kind of wrapping this up here, is there anything else you guys would like to talk about? Talking about community, church, family, farm, or what you love about being an organic farmer, or what you don't like? Is there anything else you like?
I was going to say I don't think there's anything I don't like.
Your pool manager's okay?
He does actually a really good job.
I'm surprised. I was
We'll
really
take the pennies
surprised.
under the table.
That's $100
I
handshake.
like how simple it is. It's just organic farm is just so simple, and what I mean by that is just it's not complicated.
You're not saying it takes simple people to do it.
No, I'm not saying that. It's just a lot of common sense and I always think try to keep your farm simple. Not make that it's so complicated that if a death comes up in the family that the neighbors couldn't come in and do the chores.
Well, that's another great thing about being organic is there's no worry about putting some antibiotic milk in the tank or anything like that. So that's a really good thing.
If there is a death in your own immediate family, you do not do your own chores. The neighbors will come in, and usually there's someone in the church or the neighborhood who knows how things run well enough. You might go out and give them several instructions, but they usually do all your chores for you.
Which is harder than you might think.
Of the funeral.
When our daughter passed away,
for several days.
we had a neighbor boy that came did the milking. And wasn't it the first milking? Our moisture trap didn't work, and he didn't have the pump on automatic. So the receiver jar, it ran over into the moisture trap, and the moisture trap didn't work, so it all went into the vacuum line.
Oh, no.
And the milk was squirting out the vacuum pump.
Uh-huh.
So that was very difficult, you might say, but people just stepped in and they just, I think David went out for a bit there, but he didn't. I mean, they just stepped in and they just took care of it, and we still didn't
Figured
have to
it out.
work. They did. And at a time like that is really when you feel what the community does for you. They just, and you feel that your grief is being helped along by everybody, not just, you kind of feel it. I mean, of course at times you feel very alone, but as the most part.
Not carrying the whole burden yourself.
No.
Well, I think that's what we'll wrap up with. Thank you for talking with us today, and
Thank you so much for joining us. Really enjoyed this.
You're welcome. It wasn't as bad as I expected.